Not a strong signal for debris, which is good news. Want to continue to monitor what we're seeing right there outside of Zachary. A couple more scans here, and if we see this shade go a little bit deeper, that might tell us there's a little bit of debris out there. And then farther to the south of Gardier and St. George, in between Plaquemine and Gabriel, we see a tornado-warned storm with just on the northern fringes of that box, an idea that there might be a little rotation approaching the Gardier area. And again, in a tornado-warned storm that is moving off to the northeast at about 65 miles per hour. So it's going to clear sections in southeastern East Baton Rouge Parish over the span of the next 15 to 20 minutes here. So you don't really have time to see what's going on outside. There's a lot of rain and wind. Visibility is poor, so looking out your window will not do you a lot of service anyway. Good idea to find that low-level interior room away from windows. To review this, if we have it in a few minutes here and you're just joining us here on WBRZ as we cover two active tornado warnings in and around East Baton Rouge Parish. We know we don't have a lot of two-story homes. We don't have a lot of basements in the Gulf South, but we do have an interior room, likely a hallway, a closet, might be a bathroom, and the idea is to put as many walls between you and the outdoors as possible when there's a tornado warning for your area, when there's a severe thunderstorm warning for your area. If you want to take that extra step of leashing up your pets so that if something does happen, you take them with you, and therefore you don't get separated as well. I know that's what I would do with my dogs, and that's what my wife will be doing with our dogs if we do get indeed in a tornado warning in those sections of the parish. And that storm is moving towards southeastern East Baton Rouge Parish. So if you're watching right now and you're, say, in that 10-12 corridor just east of the city or in the Shenandoah area or the St. George area, you are included in that tornado warning. The storm cell is going to be racing over those sections of the metro area in the next couple of minutes here as the Squall line continues to barrel off to the east at about 50 to 60 miles per hour. I want to give you another look at that line without the lightning turned on at the moment, and you can really see how it splits the middle of our viewing area right now. Mississippi River in Baton Rouge is about the halfway point. It's approaching I-55 in northern sections. It's right now running across Highway 90 in southern sections. But if you're west of the Mississippi River in West Feliciana Parish, Point Coupee Parish, Iberville Parish, western Iberville Parish, you are now in the clear for severe weather this evening. So it's only going to last for a matter of another hour or so here in our viewing area, but we do have a fairly dangerous situation right now in northern East Baton Rouge Parish as there's an active tornado warning until 9 o'clock. You can see the outlined parishes on the screen there, and we continue to monitor an area of broad rotation in the northeastern section of the parish. Talked about this a moment ago, but this is kind of in the Baywood area and moving off to the northeast, so toward Bluff Creek, toward Pine Grove, Highway 63, Highway 37, crossing into East Feliciana Parish, all areas that would be in the path of this storm. So it's just outside now of Zachary and Central on the northern sides of those sections of East Baton Rouge Parish and heading toward the northeast, going to be crossing into northwestern Livingston, southwestern St. Helena, and now in southeastern East Feliciana Parish. As far as rotation goes, we're looking for that wind moving toward the radar site, wind moving away from the radar site. This does appear to be relatively broad in nature. Typically, you look for a really tight little circle where green is wrapping around the red for the presence of a tornado on the ground. But in a broadly rotating storm like this, you can sometimes see a quick spin up, drop on the ground within that broad area of rotation, which is why you have to respect this entire bright red box right now, especially if you're, say, northeast of a line between Zachary and Central in the northeastern corner of East Baton Rouge Parish, southeastern East Feliciana, and southwestern St. Helena Parish is where you need to be sheltered up in your safe place right now. Let's go to that next map and see if we have any signs of debris. Still not the case in those sections, which is good news. Still no reports from the National Weather Service of any confirmation that a tornado has been touched down. This remains a radar-indicated tornado, as does what we're seeing now moving out of southeastern Iberville Parish and into southeastern East Baton Rouge Parish. So we're talking about St. Gabriel and moving toward Gardier and St. George now. And I still kind of detect that this rotation is just kind of riding the northern sides of this warning box here. See, that Gardier area would be the most suspicious area on this radar scan here, in between Gardier and Old Jefferson. So if you're in that I-10 corridor right now, this is where we have some signs of some rotation in this tornado tornado warning storm, and this is where I'd really like you, especially to be sheltered up at the moment in these sections of East Baton Rouge Parish. So this is approaching St. George, and we'll be on you in a matter of moments, if not already, given the forward speed of this storm at about 65 miles per hour. I want to check debris once again, see if we have any indications, and still nothing that jumps out to me to suggest that we would have something on the ground at the moment right now. We'll continue to monitor that cell and, of course, the cell that we have racing off through parts of northern East Baton Rouge Parish at this time. There's our first tornado warning that came in as we were approaching the 9 o'clock hour here. Zachary, Baker, and Central now trimmed out of this, so it's really starting to move into the rural sections of northern East Baton Rouge Parish, southern East Feliciana Parish, southwestern St. Helena Parish, and the tornado warning there are going to remain active just until 9 o'clock this evening. Farther to the south, we have that second tornado warning that we're watching, and again, I see that kind of approaching the I-10 corridor in southeastern East Baton Rouge Parish. Going to be an area to watch, heavily populated, where we have a rotating storm cell now moving through Gardeal toward Gardeer, Oak Hills, and Old Jefferson in the next couple of minutes. Rotation continues to be evident there as we scan away one to the next. No real changes. Remember, when you're looking at this map, you're seeing wind that's moving toward the radar site in Slidell. That's a sign that there might be some wind moving away from the radar site. So we do have some rotation broadly showing up here in southern East Baton Rouge Parish that will very shortly be cutting across I-10 and Airline Highway in southeastern East Baton Rouge Parish over the next couple of minutes. This tornado warning active until about 9:15. We'll see if the National Weather Service is trimming this section of the warning off, and they already have done that in portions of central Iberville Parish. So you're going to be in the clear in Plaquemine and now St. Gabriel. It's East Baton Rouge Parish that's on deck, keeping an eye on this one right now. Still don't have a signal for any debris out there, which continues to be good news, especially in a heavy populated area. We're not seeing any signs of building material being lofted yet. But if you're in that tornado warning, the green check boxes in that low-level interior room, away from windows. You want to stay away from the outdoors if you can right now. Don't be trying to catch a glimpse of what's happening outside. Put as many walls between yourself and the outdoors as you physically can. It's the safest thing to do when we have a severe thunderstorm warning or a tornado warning across our area. Let's go back to our looping radar and look at the bigger picture, those two tornado warnings that we're on the air covering right now across the 10-12 corridor. A storm that continues to lift into a considerably less favorable environment for tornadoes is still showing some broad signs of rotation into East Feliciana and St. Helena Parish. It's going to be approaching I-55 now in the next 30 to 45 minutes. And we, of course, have a spinning cell over southern East Baton Rouge Parish that will very shortly be crossing I-10. If you know somebody that's out and about in that area right now, I encourage you to give them a buzz and hit them on the cell phone and see if they want to pause their drive at the moment in the Gonzales area or maybe the city of Baton Rouge. We don't really want any east-west travel through East Baton Rouge Parish at the moment. Dangerous storm cells moving across that state line with East Baton Rouge, Iberville, and Ascension Parish, right across Airline Highway as well. That would alert drivers in that area as well. Get to a shelter if they're on the road, or advise them to pause their drive and not cross through that section of the parish in the next 10 to 15 minutes while we let this storm cross over the highway, cross the interstate, and move closer to the Amite River as the southwestern portion of Livingston Parish will be on deck next. Let's go over to our velocity scan one more time and continue to see that sign of rotation just over the St. George area. This is going to be now crossing Airline Highway, somewhat close to, let's say, the Mall, Bluebonnet, Segan area is where we're seeing this rotating storm. It's going to be heading towards Shenandoah in the next couple of minutes here as we approach the 9 o'clock hour, and after that we head toward the Amite River. But this tornado warning is live until the 9 o'clock hour across East Baton Rouge, portions of northern Ascension Parish. And now we're getting in a suggestion that there might be a little bit more going on out there. Notice as we're looking across the map where you see all these darker shades of red, this is natural moisture, hail, rain droplets in the atmosphere. When we start to see some discoloration further up on the scale, that's a sign that we could have some maybe vegetation or some building debris showing up as well. It's not a strong signal, but it's something I want to continue to keep an eye on. Doesn't necessarily look like it's in a rounded circular area, which would be the greatest signal of debris. Notice how this kind of stretches across Gardeer and then off to the east. So it could be a bit of a radar error, but the fact that it's brightest right over that area where we're detecting rotation in St. George gives me a little bit of pause in saying there may not be something that is briefly touched down or causing some wind damage. So remember, if you're in that area, to place as many walls between yourself and the outside as possible. This is arguably one of the most heavily populated areas in the viewership, and want to continue to keep folks in that area safe as the tornado warning remains active until the 9 o'clock hour. 2 tornado warnings in our area, in fact. You have the one in northeastern East Baton Rouge Parish. You have another moving across St. Helena Parish and southeastern East Feliciana Parish. And, of course, that one that's moving right through the capital city at this time. Notice as we take the lightning off the board, you get a better idea for the positioning of the squall line through southwest Mississippi, across I-55, dropping southwestward across the Amite River, and then through the Baton Rouge area, and then into Iberville and Ascension Parish, and then finally starting to move east of Morgan City now, the tail end of this line stretching into the Gulf of Mexico. Notice as we look at that radar view in northeastern East Baton Rouge, the tornado warning has been trimmed for areas of Zachary, Baker, and Central. And we still look at some broad rotation in that area, trying to actually tighten up a little bit right where the 3 parishes meet just to the north of Central. So that's going to be an area to monitor moving forward, though we still don't have any signs of rotation in that area at the moment. This tornado warning active for about another 7 minutes in our area. Further to the south, tornado warning until 9 o'clock for Ascension, East Baton Rouge, and Iberville. Iberville just about at the point now where we're coming into the clear in those sections, as I'm most concerned about the rotation that we might be seeing just across Airline Highway and south of I-12 now, moving closer to the Sherwood Forest and O'Neill exits on I-12, about to cross the Amite River. We're moving closer to Range Road and Denham Springs at this point. So this one very close to crossing a second interstate in about 15 or 20 minutes time in those sections. And again, we're keeping an eye on that debris signature potential, and I'm just not overly convinced that this is something to be alarmed about at the moment. The way that looks and stretches out horizontally west to east across the area doesn't necessarily lead me to believe that we have anything being wafted into the atmosphere, but the discoloration is at least something to pay more attention to than what we've seen so far with that northern warning. So there's a look at those reminders of ways to keep safe this evening. We've had severe thunderstorms with a history of wind damage just outside of New Roads. We've had tornadoes produced today in southwestern Louisiana outside of Lake Charles. It got going in the Baytown area of southeastern Texas today, and this squall line continues to march east at a very rapid pace, approximately 60 to 65 miles per hour through southeast Louisiana this evening. The National Weather Service has indicated to us that as this squall line passes your area, they will be continuously trimming parishes and counties out of the tornado watch, which is, of course, good news. That we can say safely that areas that are west of this squall line from New Roads, south through Point Capee Parish, west Baton Rouge Parish, northern Iberville Parish, and even western St. Mary Parish, you're now in the clear from the threat for severe weather. But it is maintained in those areas closer to the Amite River now that are under a tornado warning just through the 9 o'clock hour. And I want to let you know on a programming note that we're going to be coming into the 9 o'clock hour, continuing our coverage here on WBRZ, WBRZ Plus, and the cable weather channel, as long as we see parts of our area in a tornado warning. It's the safest course of action for us to be on the air with you and giving you guidance as to watching these storms move through our area and staying in your safe place as long as we remain under these warnings. If you are in the clear of these storms and can report to us that something's happened or not happened within those tornado warned areas, feel free to email us, weather@wbrz.com. If you know of any damage and can safely report that to us, you can send it to the same email, of course, Twitter @WBRZ Weather as well. That helps us pass along to the National Weather Service if these storms are in fact producing wind damage or tornadoes or not. Noticing that we zoom into that northern tornado warning, which is live for another 4 to 5 minutes here across northern East Baton Rouge Parish, and we have seen it trimmed off on the southwestern side, but is now seeing an entry into parts of southeastern East Feliciana and southwestern St. Helena Parish. And this tornado warned storm has had a broad area of rotation associated with it, but still not yet any signs of any damage in that section. Checking the spin out there, it is broad, as I mentioned. Typically, you like to see this about half half the size that it is to produce a tornado, but within these broad areas of rotation, at times you can get a brief spin up that makes it down to the surface or does create some damaging wind gusts. So we're going to continue to monitor that area as it starts to move toward Greensburg in the next couple of minutes, and we still haven't seen any signs of any debris out there being wafted into the sky by this particular cell. So that's the latest on that one. Let's move to the southern cell now and get an update for what's happening there. Once again, this was getting very close to I-12 in the old Jefferson and Shenandoah area. I mentioned a moment ago this is probably closer to the Sherwood or O'Neill exits on I-12, and indeed that is where we're seeing the rotation now, just over top of I-12 and moving to the south of Denham Springs. Might be some really strong wind gusts crossing the Amite River just to the north of Port Vincent right now and a little south of Juban Crossing. So we're keeping an eye on those sections for the potential of some strong winds as we move toward the 9 o'clock hour here. These storm cells are racing at about 60 to 65 miles per hour, which is why we're kind of advising you to get to your shelter as quickly as possible and try to not get a glimpse for what may be happening outside because it just isn't enough time with how fast they're moving. We saw this move from Gardere to the Amite River in a matter of about 10 minutes during our coverage here, and that continues to be the storm cell that I'm watching most closely. It is moving through the most heavily populated section of our viewing area right now and does have the best sign or signal that there may be some rotation occurring right where the green and the red meet here south of I-12. And again, it is hauling off to the northeast at about 60 to 65 miles per hour. Just moving to the north of I-12 in the next 5 minutes or so here. So we'll pass between Denham Springs. We're talking about the Range Road exit. Up next would be the Juban exit north of I-12 in that area, and then maybe just outside of Walker on the northern side in the next few minutes. Working with meteorologist Jason Weed, I know we're getting a printout from the National Weather Service and an update to what's happening, and a new statement's been issued by the National Weather Service. This is actually for the severe weather that is occurring south of these tornado warnings and towards the tail end of the line closer to the Gulf of Mexico. So strong thunderstorms continue there and with this entire squall line across portions of St. Mary Parish. There's the overview of what we're seeing across our area as we approach the 9 o'clock hour here and watch this squall line continue to march from west to east across our area at about 60 to 65 miles per hour. Severe thunderstorm warnings encompassing Iberville, West Baton Rouge, East Baton Rouge, and Livingston Parish, portions of St. James and Assumption Parish, and then across St. Mary Parish, all under severe thunderstorm warnings for the potential of strong gusty winds. The bright red boxes are the ones we give the most respect to. They're the ones I really want you paying attention to now and sheltering up in if you're in a tornado warning, and that does include sections of northern East Baton Rouge Parish and also portions of southwestern St. Helena Parish and southeastern East Feliciana Parish. National Weather Service firing off some more updates. I want to get an idea for what's going on there. And we are going with a new severe thunderstorm warning, a broad severe thunderstorm warning. Let's go out the wide look to give you an idea for that. Notice how the box has been extended. This orange box has been extended to the east, outside of Baton Rouge and Gonzales, toward the Hammond area, and just to the west of Lake Maurepas. So this is almost all of Livingston Parish, all of Ascension Parish, northern Assumption Parish, and northern St. James Parish. Severe thunderstorm warning capable of producing 60-mile-per-hour winds and maybe some penny-sized hail, and we do have to keep an eye on the potential for a quick spin-up tornado as well. We've already seen a host of tornado warnings this evening, a couple of them being allowed to expire as we approach the 9 o'clock hour here. And then we have that live tornado warning that I continue to monitor moving through and across the Amite River into Livingston Parish over the next couple of minutes here. There's where that rotation is currently positioned. We see that just outside of Denham Springs and to the west of Walker, and will continue lifting off to the northeast at about 65 miles per hour. So especially in western Livingston Parish right now, we'd ask you to shelter up in those areas. If you're in the city of Baton Rouge near the campus of LSU, you're in the clear. If you're in the St. George area, you're in the clear, save for maybe some breezy winds on the backside of this storm. And then in Central and Baker, you go into the clear as well. And we're still not seeing any signs of any debris with this rotation in our area at the moment. Let's go to that big picture one more time. I know we've crossed through the 9 o'clock hour now, and we are on WBRZ, WBRZ Plus, and the cable weather channel monitoring this active weather situation as the radar continues to show this squall line moving moving from west to east across our area. It's going to be approaching I-55 as we come into the 9 o'clock hour here. And with that, we will continue to see the potential for gusty winds on the North Shore. Severe thunderstorm wind gusts now moving close to Lake Pontchartrain through Livingston Parish, Ascension Parish, St. James, and Northern Assumption Parish. And as I turn the lightning off, you can see that we still have some very intense pockets of this squall line out there across our area, stretching from Macomb through Greensburg, now into the Denham Springs area, under a tornado warning until 9:15. Just to the west of Gonzales, severe thunderstorm warning, and then outside of Morgan City, strong winds continue there, though no active warnings in those sections at the moment. Let's go to our latest scan here on the tornado-warned storm. This one has been extended until 9:45 across western Livingston Parish, and we've been trying to keep an eye on the rotation with that one. A little bit boggled by the fact that the National Weather Service has this bright red polygon kind of south of where we're seeing the clearest indications of rotation right now, and that would be just to the south of Denham Springs. Still could be some really strong winds within that bright red box, but even anybody with a quick glance here is able to see that this would be the area of concern for the potential of rotation. That's where you have two outline colors telling us that we have winds moving toward the radar and winds moving away from the radar, and potentially some rotation in the Denham Springs area right now, riding right along I-12. And there it is. Just as I said that, the National Weather Service updates with a new tornado warning. Makes more sense now with where we're seeing rotation. May well allow that old warning to expire or be replaced, because the rotation is clearly over the Denham Springs area and moving through north central East Baton Rouge Parish. Let me take that drawing off now, and we'll really focus in on that new polygon. I want to go in nice and tight now. Look at these areas where we might be seeing some of that rotation. Highway 1030, Highway 1026, Highway 1025. If you're on Barnett Lane, if you're on Burgess Road, if you're on Dunn Road, those are areas where I'd really like you to get into your safe spot now. A low-level interior room away from windows. Hallway's good. Interior closet's good. A bathroom's good if it doesn't have an exterior wall or a window. Don't try to catch a glimpse right now, because this is fairly tight signature rotation, maybe the tightest we've seen in our area so far this evening, with a pair of tornado warnings in northern East Baton Rouge Parish and earlier in St. Mary Parish. So that's the area that we're going to continue to monitor over the next couple of minutes here. As far as any debris goes, again, still not sold that we have something touched down based on that, but just a little bit of discoloration there north of Denham Springs could suggest that we have a little more going on than just moisture or potentially some small hail being wafted into this thunderstorm. So going to continue to watch that on the radar scan as well. There's the broad picture. That main tornado warning that we focus in on is in northern Livingston Parish at this hour, just to the east of the Amite River, and this storm cell, like the others, racing tonight at about 60 to 65 miles per hour. Broadly speaking, that squall line has produced some damaging wind gusts in Point Capee Parish tonight, the Ventress area just outside of New Roads and False River. We had damage earlier in Lafayette outside of Rain, where there's been a flipped tractor trailer thanks to gusty winds on I-10. We saw some damage to structures in Jefferson and Orange, Texas, and then a big hit in Deer Park and Baywood, Texas, due to some tornadoes earlier. So this is a squall line that has had a history of wind damage across the Gulf Coast this evening, and certainly we may see some gusty winds within those tornado-warned areas as well. Lightning turned off, because I know that can be a little bit distracting, make the map even busier than it is with all those warnings in the radar at this time. And you'll notice that the squall line is really racing out to the east a little bit faster across northern sections of our viewing area. So if you're in Amite and Wilkinson County, in the clear for severe weather. Tornado watch hasn't been canceled yet, but in East Feliciana Parish, at least on the western side, West Feliciana Parish and Point Capee Parish, in the clear for severe weather. West Baton Rouge Parish, you no longer have a severe weather threat. Iberville Parish, no longer a severe weather threat. And most of western St. Mary Parish, no longer a severe weather threat. And we're just now starting to see the worst of it pass through East Baton Rouge Parish. Eyes are on Ascension, Livingston, and St. Helena Parish at this time, with a couple of tornado-warned storms. There's the remnants of the original tornado warning that brought us on the air around 8:30 this evening. That one's going to be allowed to expire. We are focused in on what we're watching with a storm just to the north of Denham Springs right now. So I'm going to go back to that one, and give me 1 minute to cycle through my maps here and keep an eye eye on what's happening through central Livingston Parish. This storm's kind of racing off to the northeast at 60 miles per hour, so we constantly have to readjust the view on our radar here to keep that tight look because it moves out of range so quickly, 1 or 2 scans later, and we really got to slide things off to the northeast to monitor it. Continuing to see some signs of rotation there on our velocity image. This now puts it to the north of Highway 190 and the north of I-12. So we're getting into some slightly more rural areas, but still on the northern side of Walker, just to the southeast of Watson, and lifting off to the northeast from there. It's a race, so again, you don't have time to race to the window or outside to get a glimpse of what's going on. It's storming, lightning's dangerous as it is. There's heavy rain with poor visibility because the winds are strong, so you're probably not going to see anything anyway. Most of the activity that's occurred that's been tornadic throughout the day has been rain-wrapped, meaning you don't even see it coming, and you kind of just have to respect the warning as is. Once again, got that area circled outside of Denham Springs. Again, the fact that rotation has moved northeast of that tells me that we don't necessarily have confirmation that something's touched down. Not a strong signal that we have some debris happening here, but this one is worth checking every couple of radar scans as well, which, by the way, we get a new one about every 90 seconds, which allows us to continue to update you on the progress of this storm. Broad picture now showing the active warnings in our area. The big box, the orange box, so we're going to have the strongest, gustiest winds leading the squall line toward Lake Maurepas at the moment. Old tornado warning that's going to be expiring here in the corner of East Feliciana and St. Helena Parish, and the latest tornado warning in northern Livingston, southeastern St. Helena. This is going to include Greensburg and then parts of western Tangipahoa Parish, including a part of I-55 with that newest tornado warning. And the southernmost tornado warning may well be allowed to expire as well, as we've continued to see that rotation was most evident with the northern part of that warning. I'm actually a little surprised the Weather Service hasn't trimmed that one out or canceled it yet, because we are certainly focused in on northern Livingston Parish at the moment, and that tornado warning that's live until about 9:45. Most intense part of that rotating storm cell is currently to the north of Walker, to the northeast of Denham Springs, and the southeast of Watson at this time. It's broad rotation, not tight couplet as we call it. You don't see bright red butted up against bright green. That would tell us that we likely have a very strong circulating storm. It's broad right now, but still capable of dropping a quick spin-up tornado in a situation like that. So that's an area to monitor. As far as areas that might be in the path of that storm, north of Denham Springs and Walker. I'm talking about Highway 1024 now. Some landmarks for you in that area. We've got the True Light Baptist Church just north of Highway 1019. Ken's Kitchen Customs is in that area. Live Oak Sports Complex is going to be just to the northwest of that, off the Amite River. And then as we move toward Highway 447, we get a little bit closer toward Kane Market Road and Spring Lake, and the Vickers Cemetery is where we're going to see this broad rotation starting to move through north central Livingston Parish. So those are areas to keep an eye on. If you're along some of those highways we pointed out a moment ago, in the neighborhoods like Equestrian Estates, Perkins Crossing, I would look for you to shelter up in some of those areas at this time. Broad rotation is kind of right overhead in north central Livingston Parish at the moment. And this is the area that we were talking about, listing off, naming some of those roads, some of those landmarks to the north of Walker and the northeast of Denham Springs. So give respect to that bright red box. It's a broad area of rotation. Typically, we can say it's on the southern end of the warning or the northern end of the warning, but right now, everybody in that bright red box wants to pay attention to the weather situation. This will cross northern Livingston Parish here in the next 15 to 20 minutes. As we get closer to 9:30, we're going to see this approaching the border with Tangipahoa Parish and eventually I-55, as the heart of the squall line is currently producing a potentially damaging wind gusts. This is the orange box right here, and that is where we could see some gusts exceeding 60 miles per hour, if not on that northern edge, potentially a tornado as well. So that's what we've been monitoring since about 8:30 now, coming up on about 40 to 45 minutes of this line marching across our viewing area with several active warnings. And of course, if you're in the bright red box, the situation is most urgent for you to seek shelter in a low-level interior room away from windows. And I listed off some of those areas a moment ago, but if we look outside of Watson, outside of Walker, just to the north of I-12 is where we're seeing the strongest part of this storm. See right where that white arrow is pointing? That's about where the circulation situation is at this moment, and you get an idea for that too as we go to our velocity scan. This is really the clearest image to show you where we're tracking rotation and where we're concerned about the possibility of a tornado touching down. Still not yet any word from the National Weather Service reporting any damage from these tornado warnings. Not any word from any viewers or fire departments, police departments experience anything or anything being spotted. If you've seen this storm move past your area and can safely report damage or no damage, please feel free to do that for us. Weather at WBRZ.com. We can relay that to the National Weather Service. But I don't want you going to look for something before you're in the clear. And anybody that's not in the clear would include sections north of Denton Springs and Walker, even north of Livingston now, and north of Highway 190 in central Livingston Parish. Anybody west of that, closer to the Amite River and Denham Springs, you're in southern East Baton Rouge Parish, you can report anything to us, feel free to do that. But I want you to remain kind of in your safe spot right now if you're in the north central portion of Livingston Parish at the moment. Let's go to our debris check, and we continue to have no strong signal there that we would have anything occurring or being wafted into the atmosphere. Continue to say that that's good news, and there's the big picture once again. Busy night in the capital area as this well-advertised squall line continues its charge from west to east across our 13 parish and 3-county viewing area. Look back off to the west, see a flash flood warning in the Lafayette area, especially in west central Louisiana. The northern part of this line did earlier produce some heavy rain. It's really more or less a standing water issue, and we've not had any reports of that this evening, by and large part of the fact that this is moving so rapidly. So even if you get an inch of rain in a half hour, 45 minutes, that's it, and it's out of there as we see this continue to cross our viewing area with a likely exit to the east of I-55 over the next 30 to 45 minutes. Now, there's a slightly tighter look and a new severe thunderstorm warning across portions of Pike County at the moment. And then southwestward from there, the tornado warnings, which have our attention in northern Livingston Parish. And nothing is going on in those sections in terms of damage reports coming back our way at the moment. But as we continue to scan away and watch this storm racing off to the northeast, we're getting farther and farther from Walker, Denham Springs, and Watson as to where we could see some potential rotation with this storm right now. Looking a little closer to Highway 449 and Highway 63. It's going to be near that intersection. The Way Church of Livingston, Lanier Cemetery, those would be areas that are kind of in the path or at least beneath some of this broad rotation just to the southeast of Poley and Weiss Road, which is Highway 63, and the Salem Cemetery as we're cutting across northeastern Livingston Parish at the moment. And again, I think this gives us the best glimpse of the areas to watch right now. A lot of those areas I just highlighted and pointed out are going to be in this area I'm circling with an arrow. It's where we have some strong wind gusts at the very least and potentially some broad rotation indicating the potential for this storm to produce a tornado. No debris showing up at the moment. So here's a reminder. We haven't shown this in about 10 minutes here as we continue our coverage. I know we're not in a lot of two-story homes in Louisiana. We're not in a lot of basements, but even in our single-story homes, we usually have an anchored room in the middle of the house with some beams around it, a hallway, a closet, if you can get to it, a bathroom that's maybe on the interior, that green check area. That's where you want to be. Low-level interior room, placing as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Even in a gusty thunderstorm, that's a good idea. Don't want to be looking out the window, opening the front door, try to get a glimpse of what's happening outside, especially if you're in some of those areas we outlined a moment ago in central Livingston Parish. I know we have some mobile homes, and even there, you want to get to the middle of the mobile home if possible, and maybe grab some pillows or a mattress to keep near you to be safe if you're in the path of the tornado-warned storm. And that's what we're all about here, is just keeping you safe, getting you through this active night. I know it's a little stressful. I know sometimes we see damage, sometimes we do not, but in the event that we do have a damaging thunderstorm, and we've had radar detection that we could have a damaging or tornadic thunderstorm, we're doing this to make sure that you're as safe as can possibly be. That lone tornado warning is what's active in our viewing area now. Continues off to the northeast at about 60 to 65 miles per hour. We're going to watch this approach northeastern Livingston Parish, western Tangipahoa Parish, and I-55 as we move toward the bottom of the hour. And we're going to stick with you until we do see that tornado warning reach I-55, which is kind of the eastern limit of our viewing area, and our coverage kind of stops from there. But if you're with us in north central Livingston Parish right now, we've got your back and want to make sure that you are safe this evening. Not leaving out our folks across across portions of southern Livingston Parish, Ascension Parish, approaching Lake Maurepas, the broader orange box, that's a severe thunderstorm warning. Some of our severe thunderstorms earlier in the Point Capee area, for instance, outside of New Roads and Ventris, we saw a rolled mobile home thanks to a 60-plus mile-per-hour wind gust, and that's why the severe thunderstorm warnings need to be given respect as well. I know it's a much bigger area, still a large population base in our viewing area, a lot of people under a warning in our viewing area at the moment, but all of you should be kind of taking that severe thunderstorm warning seriously. While it will not produce for the majority that are watching us right now, you do have those isolated instances where those really strong winds make it down to the surface, and in some cases do roll a mobile home, or in some cases do produce a tornado. And it is for those few people or those few dozens that are impacted that we continue to cover this storm as the tornado warning is active. There's a zoomed in look at that warning. Get you the timeline there. 9:45. That's going to be for East Baton Rouge and Livingston, but really we are clearly only in Livingston Parish at the moment with the rotating part of the storm. The tail end just kind of stretches over the Amite River, which is why you're going to still see that on the label there. I don't want to mistake you. You are in the clear if you are in the city of Baton Rouge at the moment. We are focused in more broadly on northeastern Livingston Parish, and in fact, I do want to take the map a little bit wider here and make that more obvious. Montpelier should be on standby. You're under the tornado warning. The broad rotation is heading your way now. Let's go a little bit wider on this radar view as well, kind of eliminate East Baton Rouge Parish from the view as we focus in on those areas that are going to be most impacted by this warning at the moment. Still not a clear indication that we may have debris. To explain, if you are just with us on this coverage here, what we're looking at on this map labeled debris, these colors towards the left side of the scale tell us that it's natural cloud droplets, water, rain, maybe some hail. Once you start to see some yellows, maybe some greens, we're talking about larger objects that the radar is detecting. That's how Doppler radar works, different sized and shaped objects. And with that, that could be plant material, trees, could be structure material. We just don't see anything too terribly deep into that scale that gives me great pause that we've had a touchdown and that kind of debris being thrown into the sky at the moment. But I always go back and check that because in a matter of 90 seconds to 2 minutes, you can see these storms kind of tighten up and suddenly start to produce. So it's worth continuing to verify whether or not we are seeing any debris out there this evening. So far has not been the case. There's our active tornado warning right along the St. Helena Parish and Livingston Parish line, and then the large severe thunderstorm warning that encompasses areas east of Baton Rouge, now to the east of, let's say, St. Gabriel and Prairieville, starting to bear down on Gonzales, likely the eastern sides of Gonzales. If you're in Sorrento, you're about to get this squall line with some gusty winds, some heavy rain, and frequent lightning. And then northern parts of St. James and Assumption parishes, right along the Mississippi River, some of our communities there are seeing this squall line pass just by to the east, and will be leaving our viewing area on the southern end momentarily. So we only have a couple minutes left here. Certainly by the time we get to the 10 o'clock hour, our viewing area is going to be clear of this squall line, and the National Weather Service has been trimming the tornado watch back to indicate that. So in fact, take a look at what they're showing there, and you'll notice it's kind of an odd shape. It's because these are two different National Weather Service offices. Lake Charles covers this area, Slidell covers this area, and you can see that Slidell right on top of things, seeing the squall line is passed to the east of Baton Rouge. So East Baton Rouge Parish, West Baton Rouge Parish, Iberville, Point Capee, West Feliciana, East Feliciana, no longer a threat for tornadoes in your area. We'll continue to monitor St. James, Ascension, Livingston, St. Helena, and Tangipahoa. And again, this is about for another 15 to 20 minutes where the potential will exist for a quick spin up or maybe some damaging wind gusts. There's our big picture. The squall line is on its march to I-55. Really, it's entered our viewing area around 7. It's going to be gone by about 10 o'clock. A 3-hour pass is as quick as you'll see, especially on a system that's moving about 60 to 65 miles per hour. And that's the motion we saw on the tornado-warned storm earlier, kind of riding to the northeast through Livingston Parish. So let's go back to that guy and show you that warning that's up until 9:45 in those sections. You'll notice on the latest scan there, the radar image kind of jumped forward a little bit. So here's where we're seeing the heart of this storm about to cross over the parish line into southeastern St. Helena Parish, into the Montpelier area. The rotation still looks fairly broad, but we're watching this whole area right on the parish line. This is going to wind up just to the northwest of Independence and be approaching Amite City along Highway 55 or I-55 now in the next 10 to 15 minutes. And again, that tornado warning live until 9:45. And the National Weather Service surprisingly hasn't trimmed back the southern or the tail tip of this tornado warning yet, closer to Livingston, Denham Springs, Watson, and Walker. But I can pretty confidently say that folks in that area are now in the clear. This is for northeastern Livingston Parish and southeastern St. Helena Parish, the Montpelier area that is under the tornado warning at the moment. Let's go back to that debris tracker. Not much standing out on that map, so we won't spend too much time on it, and get you that reminder as we are just coming into Montpelier now. You might be just joining us if you're getting the tornado warning or realizing that it's crossing into your area. There's our map of the home. Not a lot of two-story homes, not a lot of basements, but we all do have a center room and a hallway or a closet or a bathroom that we can get to, and even a mobile home. Find your way to the middle of it with some soft items, pillows, blankets, mattress, just to be safe if you're in the path of the tornado-warned storm. Let's get you some locations there now. As we're on that parish line toward Montpelier, the rotation we are seeing at the moment as it makes its approach towards Montpelier is closer to the Calvary Baptist Church or the Bayou Stone Concrete. I'm looking for Miller's Grocery just north of Montpelier. You're going to see that rotation moving through momentarily. And then Highway 43, it's about to cross over some of those sections. And again, right on cue, as I mentioned it with the National Weather Service, they're trimming Denham Springs, Livingston, Walker, and Watson out of the tornado warning. So again, this is now Montpelier as far as a populated area we're watching under the tornado warning, and then the next town over from that is going to be closer to Amite City and Roseland, crossing over I-55 and exiting our viewing area into parts of central and eastern Tangipahoa Parish. So remain sheltered right now, especially from Montpelier and areas east of Highway 441, like Highway 43, again near Miller's Grocery, Yawn Station, Christmas Tree Farm, and then just to the west of I-55, mainly rural sections there. We do have a couple of side streets with some homes as we start to approach Amite City. So this is the last of the tornado warning in our area. Just going to stay with you for a few more minutes here as we see that cross into Tangipahoa Parish. You can see that's all that's left of the tornado warning right now. If anything's happened in Livingston Parish, now where that squall line is east of Denham Springs, or if it's in the Baton Rouge area, St. George, Gardeer, Shenandoah, Sherwood Forest area, the O'Neill area, Juban Crossing over the border of the Amite River. If you can report anything that's happened to us, do that. If nothing's happened, that's great news. Feel free to send us a note on that as well. It tells us that the tornado warning was in fact there, but nothing touched down. Hoping everybody's safe tonight as we continue to see that severe thunderstorm warning just to the south of our little shred of a tornado warning left across all of Livingston Parish, parts of Ascension Parish, and St. James Parish tonight. And this is going to be moving over Lake Maurepas now and shortly Lake Pontchartrain. Here are a few dings going off in our weather office. I am expecting that to be marine warnings for the lakes and also this new severe thunderstorm warning in eastern Pike County tonight. So the storm line is kind of out of our area in the northern sections in southwest Mississippi, almost gone from Livingston and Tangipahoa Parish, and it has moved east of the city of Baton Rouge, now east of Gonzales and moving through Sorrento, and now east of Morgan City and moving closer to Terrebonne Parish. So just a sliver of this tornado warning left outside of Montpelier. And let's go back to our reliable our velocity tracker there, our storm motion tracker. And again, a broad sign of rotation showing up in the Montpelier area just to the west of Amite City, with this tornado warning remaining active until 9:45. We'll probably be with you until about 9:30 here till the end of our scheduled news time on WBRZ Plus, as at about that point it's going to be exiting our viewing area proper, and we'll continue to monitor with updates thereafter. So notice along I-55 right now, you're seeing those broad, wide-scale winds that are moving away from the radar. This is what's known as inflow flowing into that storm cell. And what happens is you'll see that intersecting with winds flowing down and out of the storm cell. The downdraft, they get wrapped up, and you see an area of rotation, can be sometimes broad too, especially when you're in a squall line situation like this, which is what we're seeing in that area from Montpelier to Amite City, just outside of Independence at this time. I know those are largely rural sections, but they are populated communities. We want to make sure everybody's staying safe in those areas tonight. If you are in a mobile home in those areas, again, the best idea is to get yourself some cushion and move to the middle of the mobile home if you can do that. Any structure you're in right now, don't be looking to catch a glimpse outside in that Montpelier area as to what we may be seeing in those sections. Back to debris, nothing showing up. Good news. Back to the big radar picture. Again, with you for another 3 to 4 minutes here as we approach the bottom of the hour. And that lone tornado warning is what brought us on the air here essentially an hour ago now, that we've been watching this march across East Baton Rouge, Ascension, and Livingston Parish with a large severe thunderstorm warning kind of encompassing all of this in the leading edge of the squall line as it approaches Lake Maurepas. Potential for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts out there tonight will continue. Already a history of some damage in our viewing area closer to New Roads and Ventress, and then across the Atchafalaya Basin into the Lafayette area, flash flood warnings up in some of those sections for some heavy rain that has occurred. Fortunately, with the high eastward speed of these storms, we have not seen any major flooding issues in our area. It could be a little bit of standing water for a short time. That's going to be long gone by the time most are hitting the roads tomorrow morning. Back to our tornado-warned storm just outside of Montpelier. Again, warning active until 9:45. We're going to stay with you until about 9:30. Still not yet any indication that we've got a touchdown here, but we do have a circulation just to the east of Montpelier and approaching Amite City and Highway 55. And if you're in some of those areas, as I highlighted before, especially closer to Miller's Grocery, Highway 40, which connects to Highway 55 into Independence, and then north and southbound east of Highway 441, you're in a little bit better shape. The rotation is kind of past that area. Hillsdale should still be kind of keeping an eye on this rotation, as well as those folks in and around Amite City and even toward Roseland on the east side of I-55 as this system continues its very quick northeastward motion of about 60 to 65 miles per hour. So remain sheltered up in those sections. While I'm on screen here, I'm going to go back to that broad picture. I'm going to carry you for about another minute to minute and a half before we send it back to our regular programming at the bottom of the hour. The severe thunderstorm warning across the broad central portion of our viewing area, a lot of population, does include areas like Livingston and Sorrento at the moment, Convent and Gramercy and St. James Parish. This is just now moving out of Assumption Parish and has moved east of Morgan City. As I mentioned before, too, other areas that are in the clear include Prairieville, Denham Springs, west of the squall line, Baton Rouge, just a little bit of rain, breezy, but east of the squall line, trimmed out of the tornado watch. New Roads in St. Francisville, you're clear. Woodville and Centerville, Liberty and Amite County, also clear from the threat for severe weather. So really we're watching the storm line continue on eastward through about I-55, and we'll move over Lake Maurepas and Lake Pontchartrain over the next couple of hours this evening. Back to the lightning on the board there, we see the most intense part of the line with Macomb severe thunderstorm warning, and again this cluster that is moving through Sorrento and parts of Ascension Parish right now, St. James Parish, Gramercy and Convent, and then east of Assumption Parish, and we'll be approaching New Orleans. But again, that's where it's exiting our viewing area. You can see our viewing area outlined here, which is why as this tornado warning moves across I-55, we really will break off programming here, and we're coming down on the bottom of the hour, so I'll give you one last glimpse of that tornado warning. The rotation at the moment is now east of Montpelier and just to the west of Amite City. So along I-55 in those areas, good idea to shelter up, find your way to a low-level interior room away from windows, and place as many walls between yourself and the outside as possible. This tornado warning remains active until 9:45, but as I mentioned, once we get this rotation across I-55, we really see it leave Montpelier behind in terms of any threat to our local viewership. Let's take one last look at the big radar, and I'm going to go ahead and toss it just after this. What we're going to do is continue to monitor this, get reset for our 10 o'clock newscast coming up in a half hour, and we will cut back in if we do hear any reports that there's a tornado on the ground along I-55, but this broad rotation is quickly moving off to the east, closer to Amite City and Independence. So in those areas, remain sheltered up for another 10 or 15 minutes. You'll be in the clear. You're in the clear now in Livingston Parish, like Denham Springs, Walker, Watson, Gonzales, Dallas, you're in the clear from a tornado. Baton Rouge, you're in the clear from any worries about a tornado. Within the severe thunderstorm warning area, Round Lake, Maurepas, and St. James Parish remain sheltered up until it expires around 9:45. Again, we'll pass along any additional updates as needed via the scroll at the bottom of the screen. We'll also have that information on WBRZ Plus and the cable weather channel, social media, Facebook and Twitter, as well as the WBRZ weather app and WBRZ.com. With that, we'll wrap up our ongoing coverage of the expiring tornado warning here outside of St. Helena Parish and moving into Tangipahoa Parish, and we'll have the very latest, the wrap-up on today's situation coming up tonight on the news at 10 o'clock. Back to programming on WBRZ Channel 2.